What up, everybody? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me get over to the main area here. Happy Friday. Hope everybody is doing well. I know I'm doing well. I'm excited for the weekend. Think it's going to be a good time. You know. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hi, Convo Couch. What's up, Joe? Good to see everybody. Good morning. Oh, cool. Pasta's here. So I got my chat help. That's solid. And I already got my question ready. And we got a guest coming up later. I guess I'll wait a little bit until more people kind of filter in before I start giving the skinny. Uh, Nice tweet at Joe Kennedy. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, that guy. That guy. What weekend plans do I have? Not a lot. I'm going out with my girlfriend on Saturday. One of her friends, it's their birthday, so I'm going to that. And I'm going to. That's about it, man. I got to get. By the way, if there's any Team Plaque One members here, I am getting ready to mail those T-shirts. I'm going to be organizing that some today, and I'll be getting them in the mail very soon. My shirt is a cat astronaut shirt. We are having someone joining us later today on this show. Great job with Graham on Aggressive Progressives. Can't wait for you guys to bring the Progressive Comedy Tour to Chicago. I don't know when that's going to be, but I do know that Jimmy's going to be in Chicago in July. Unfortunately, I will not be at that show. And I do know that I will be in Galena, Illinois on July 21st. Unfortunately, due to some scheduling conflicts, I'll be in Illinois shortly after Jimmy's there, and I won't be there the same time as him. I have a personal conflict. Unfortunately, I'm really bummed out to be missing that show, but unfortunately, there were just a couple things that conflicted, and I have to miss that one, which really sucks. So sorry about that. I bet Putin is going to come on later and tell us which meme to make viral next. Ha! Love it. Oh. All right, we're at 27. And you know the drill. Once we hit 30, the show has officially begun. Oh, man. 29. Anticipation. People are trickling in slow today, but that's okay. It totally happens. And we hit the mark. There are officially 30 right now. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean if this is your first time? That means you guys tweet me articles at Ron Placone, or you put them in our Reddit subsection, which let me pull that up real quick. I always forget to pull that up, which is very irresponsible of me. Let me go ahead and pull that up. And that's how it works. That's how it works, you guys. That is how this show works. I'm not prepared at all. In fact, today, I have not even seen the news. I have no idea what's going on in the news today. I'm just here, happy to be here. You guys have already been tweeting stuff. But let's start off with today's question. I got a fun one for you. Oh, wait, and other quick housekeeping before we really jump in here. Rachel Brunke will be on later in this hour. She's going to be hopping on later. She had a conflict that she couldn't get here exactly at 10. So she's going to just be hopping on the stream later. So once I see her, I'm going to jump into the interview with her. That's why I have my headphones on. She is running for Assembly District 70 here in California. She is a Green Party candidate. She has lived in Honduras. She has studied CIA coups. She's an expert in Reaganomics. I'd imagine she's not for it because she's in the Green Party. But she's really studied it. She can tell you the ins and outs on why it doesn't work. Very, 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 very fascinating woman. Very interesting candidate. Stoked to have her. She'll be jumping on later. In the meantime, it's just us doing our thing. We'll get to some articles. We'll get to some fun stuff. And we'll start with this. You guys may have seen me tweet this yesterday. The Democrats are now attacking Trump on gas prices. That's what they're going after now, guys. That was they got together in some kind of useless think tank and decided we're going to blame Trump for gas prices. By the way, this is a propaganda trick. Every party does it. When a Democrat's in office, the Republicans do it to that Democrat. When a Republican's in office, Democrats do it to that Republican. The president has very little to do with gas prices. One could even make the argument for nothing, because really, yes, Middle East conflicts affect gas prices. And you know when we're involved in Middle East conflicts? All the frickin' time. Does it matter who the president is? Frickin' no. Not if the past 30 or so years are any indication. No, it does not matter. So there you go. The argument could be made. The president pretty much has nothing to do. Virtually nothing. But every opposition party does this. Why? Because they just rely on people not making those connections. And Democrats, it's really a weak political ploy to play, because Trump can just point out all the horrible domestic energy policies he wants to push through. And he can be like, well, if Democrats weren't giving me flack on this, we could blah, blah, blah. So it could very easily backfire on them. But they are that politically tone deaf. And I am to the point now, at least when we watch the Washington Generals lose, it is entertaining. I'm to the point now where we might as well elect Democrats that can do different tricks. Maybe one that can juggle, maybe one that can breathe fire, so that when they lose, they can at least make it an entertaining spectacle for us. Because right now, it's not even entertaining. And how tone deaf can you be to think, oh, we're going to get on him on gas prices? Something nobody's talking about. Something that, does everybody know that the president has nothing to do with that? No, there are still people that don't make those connections. But I would say the average person does. It is just a tone-deaf propaganda ploy, and the Democrats would rather employ that propaganda ploy than actually stand for something. So my question today is, what are all the other policy ideas that Democrats could actually be attacking Trump on? What are all the other policy ideas? I'll start naming some. He wants to make right-to-work federal. That would end unions forever. Something no one's talking about. That's something Donald Trump wants to do. Or the Trump administration. Trump's not working solo here. He's actually the total opposite of that. He is just a knee-jerk reactionary with no ideology that just does the bidding of whoever has his ear, especially if they flatter him. So they could attack him there. All these pipelines. Instead of bullshitting about gas prices, why don't you talk about the horrific ideas that these pipelines are? How about the wall? Democrats, no pun intended, are about to cave on the wall. They're about to cave on the wall. Nobody is talking about how that idea is, first of all, based in racism. How about instead of just, whenever he says something outrageous, instead of just going up in arms about it and having a bunch of crocodile tears a la Cory Booker, you actually say, hey, you know what? Not only does he say outrageous, outlandish stuff that's offensive and embarrasses us as a nation, but he has the ideas to reflect it, like this horrific idea for a wall. Economic studies have been done on constructing a wall before. It is a terrible idea. We have no idea even how much it's going to cost. It's not going to be a sustainable venture at all. It is a terrible idea, caked in racism, and caked in a straw man and a scapegoat. Democrats could be attacking that. They're not. So there we go. That's two. Right to work federally, the wall. The pipelines, that's three. Healthcare. The fact that his healthcare bill was literally an anti-healthcare bill, that's four. Net neutrality, that's five. All these things, and you don't have to be a political junkie to be paying attention to this stuff. All the things I mentioned, 80-some% of Americans are either for or against it. They're against the Trump administration's platform on it. Net neutrality, 83% of Americans want net neutrality. Healthcare, pretty much 90% of Americans were not in favor of the AHCA. Pipelines. There was a grassroots revolt via Facebook when DAPL needed their support. Right to work federal. Most people support unions, and most people support living wages. I mean, it's just all of these policies. Oh, and by the way, I'll nip the straw man in the bud before it comes. Well, Ron, if Trump has all these terrific policies, that's why you should have voted Clinton. No, that is also BS. You know why that's BS? You know why that's BS? You know what? Let's nip this in the bud once and for all. Whenever you mention the horrible policies of this Trump administration and somebody tries to wag their finger at you because you weren't a fan of Hillary Clinton, here is why that is nonsense once and for all. Trump's policies are Republican policies. That's all. They're just Republican policies. Nothing more, nothing less. There is not one Republican that wouldn't have the exact same policies as the Trump administration. The difference between Trump and other Republicans, he has no subtlety. So if Trump's policies are just Republican policies, that means any Republican that would be in the White House will be doing the same stuff. And you know who could have beaten Hillary Clinton? Any Republican. Any single Republican. The fact that Trump beat Hillary Clinton means literally any Republican could have beat Hillary Clinton. So you shouldn't wag your finger at somebody that didn't support Hillary Clinton. You should wag your finger at the DNC for cheating because they signed our fate when they put Hillary Clinton up there because there was not anybody in the opposition that she could have beat. If John Kasich would have been the Republican nominee, it would have been a bloodbath. It would have been a landslide. He would have crushed her. So that's nonsense once and for all. Let's put that. Let's put that to sleep for permanent. In fact, Joe, make a separate clip out of that. Make a separate clip out of the, why saying you should have voted for Hillary is nonsense. So let me turn it over to you guys. What are some, and Pasta, help me out here. What are some other policies other than gas prices, which you can pretty much name anything? The non-existent infrastructure, the non-existent jobs idea, the fact that he said he was going to drain the swamp and he didn't do it. And they pick gas prices. They pick gas prices. The police state. Non-interventionism. Good one, Nathan. List goes on and on. Prison system. All right. Well, let's go to some articles. I think basically the big conclusion here, pretty much anything. The Democrats could pretty much pick an issue and it'd be a better attack on them. You guys have already been tweeting stuff at me, so let's get to it. And then there's also a really, really good, someone posted something really interesting in the Reddit. This is from V. Stewart. We're going to start here today. I'm going to go ahead and give it a Get Your News On with Ron retweet. A U.S. police officer who punched a woman told her, quote, "You're about to get dropped." Wow. Police body cam footage of a woman who was punched in the head by an officer on a beach in the U.S. shows she was told, "You're about to get dropped," and slammed to the ground after refusing to tell him her surname. Emily Wyman, 20 years old, of Philadelphia, was shown being struck. I think I saw this video before. While held down on the sand during the incident on Saturday in New Jersey. The footage did not show what led to the arrest, but Ernie Torreno Jr., the mayor of Wildwood, where the incident occurred, alleged in the comments to the Philadelphia Inquirer that Wyman was the aggressor, and that body camera footage would show officers being insulted and spat on. However, the footage released by Wildwood Police does not show Wyman insulting officers or spitting at them until she has been pinned down. she has claimed she was spitting out sand that was in her mouth. That would make sense when you are being pinned down. All right, so I'm going to watch part of this video. 20-year-old girl. They're yelling at her to stop resisting, and she is laying on the ground. She is laying defenseless on the ground. So they made her do a breathalyzer. She's asking them what she did. She doesn't want to give them her last name. So her breathalyzer, all right, I know you guys can't hear this, and all right, so her breathalyzer came up negative. So they wanted her last name. She said, no, I don't have to give you my last name. I'm not doing anything wrong. And they're saying you're being disrespectful. She's saying, no, I didn't respect you. And then they attacked her. That's what happened. And the mayor of Wildwood is on the side of the police officers. Footage does not back up his story, which is, I'm sure, the story of the officers. 20-year-old girl. 20-year-old girl in a bathing suit. This is disgusting. This is absolutely disgusting. And when we talk about police brutality, it is a systemic problem. You know what that means? That means when you say, not all cops are bad. Shut up. Shut up. The adults are talking. That's not the point. When there is an E. coli outbreak, you don't say, well, hey, not all the lettuce is bad. Some of it's good. No, you say we have a systemic problem, so we need a systemic solution. And when it comes to law enforcement, we need to completely reevaluate what that job consists of. We need to reevaluate how those officers are trained, how they are screened.
Hey, Pastor,
all of it. And we need to start at the bare bones.
That the Google
got the entire system.
Says there was an error loading your app this
afternoon. Yeah, you're live. We're on.
Wrong with it? Yay.
Yeah, you're on. I can see and hear you, Rachel.
I'm sorry. Okay. Hi. Sorry to interrupt your story.
Well, that's that's okay. It's already over. So he did drain the swamp. When you drain the swamp, you reveal the monsters that were there all along. Thank you, Balthazar. I appreciate the contribution. All right, so our guest is here. Welcome, Rachel. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I hope
Thanks
you are
for being here. So you are running for Assembly District 70 here in California. Mm-hmm. And you are a Green Party candidate. You've had quite the experience. So this is Get Your News On with Ron. You are the first guest that has ever kind of jumped in midstream here, but I appreciate you being willing to do that. I know it's not the easiest entrance to make. The way we do things here is that this is the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What that means is that people tweet me articles and post it on the Reddit, and that's how we build the show. So when we have a guest like yourself, that means you're going to be taking questions from the audience. So people are going to be asking you questions. They're going to be asking you questions about your campaign and about what you stand for. And you'll have to kind of answer them in real time. It's not the easiest show to do, but it's a lot of fun. It's a bit of a rush. You'll notice me looking around while you're talking. It's not because I'm not paying attention to you. It's because I'm trying to filter out the questions the best that I can. I have some people in the chat that help me filter the questions. So I'm looking at the stuff they're sending me along with the chat that I'm trying to monitor a little bit on my own. So that's how we do things. Please don't be offended if you notice me looking around. That's what I'm doing. And we'll start out. Give people a little bit about yourself, why you decided to run, and your background.
Okay, so my name is Rachel Brunke, and I am running for Assembly District 70. That's in Southern California. And the district comprises San Pedro, which is my hometown and where I live, And then across the bridges is Long Beach, which is the majority of the voters in the district. And also we have a small city within Long Beach, Signal Hill, and also the island of Catalina. And well, I've been political all my life. And ever since my first political act was in 1978, making little signs as an 11-year-old in my room that said, "Save our schools, vote no on Proposition 13." And I went to my school site and I put them around because I knew people were going to be voting there. And so it's been, 40 years pretty much of me being political. And I hold I'm on the board of a couple of organizations. One is a Latin American solidarity organization called Witness for Peace Southwest, long time since the early 80s, witnessing U.S. aggression against Latin America. I'm also on the board of the Harry Bridges Institute, and that is a labor organization. And I help chair the committee that's called Just Transition, that's moving workers, trying to build a movement to help workers move from the fossil fuel industry into the clean energy economy. And I'm also on the board of my neighborhood council, which is what we have in Los Angeles. So I'm the chair of the sustainability committee in the Central San Pedro Neighborhood Council. So I decided to run back in December, January, because I've been looking around and waiting for someone whose voice, whose politics I agreed with, and not since maybe Jesse Jackson in 1988. I was president of students for Jesse Jackson on my campus in Long Beach State. But I never really heard politics that like I need to hear them coming from candidates. And so I decided to run. And it turns out I really warmed up to the idea. Not many people know what the Assembly is or does. I certainly didn't very well, but it's one representative for every 485,000 people. So almost 500,000 people. No one knows, no one cares, no one's involved. And so I'm running to help create the People's Assembly. And the word assembly is actually one of my favorite words in the entire Constitution, part of the First Amendment, as we all know. And I truly believe that we need to be getting together, whoever we are, and assembling and discussing these problems at hand and coming up with grassroots solution. And we're not allowed to in this country. God forbid we actually come up with people's based solutions. So the Second Amendment is sacrosanct in this country, and not the First Amendment, not the assembly. So the freedom to assemble. So that's why I'm running.
Well, you sound very suspicious, especially with those peace earrings. I'm pretty sure you're a terrorist, but we'll continue.
Yeah, war is peace, black is white. No, double speak.
Well, we'll elaborate on one of the points you made real quick here, and we were already getting some questions from viewers. But so when you learned about the anatomy of the assembly, kind of unpack that a little bit. Why did that appeal to you?
Well, because it's, California is quote unquote a model for the country. And so I thought, here I am in this very industrialized district. We have the ports of Long Beach and the ports of Los Angeles. And yet I'm an urban farmer. But my family comes from the labor unions. They come from the port. We're all teachers here in this area. And I went to Long Beach State. I graduated from there in the 80s in political science, Latin America focus. And so I've, been in this district all my life, and realizing that that there are people that need to be in Sacramento and their districts that are people just like me. I just found out last night, I did not know, 16 out of the 80 assembly people in California are women, only 16. So I really realized that the incumbent, he's a man, he's Patrick O'Donnell, he's a fellow teacher, he's not a bad person, but I'm saying that I'm running because he's sitting. So I started to realize that my experience in Latin American politics primarily, and also up north in California, that we need a very grassroots kind of politics. So that's why I'm running also.
Kate wants to know, why did you decide to run green?
Okay, thank you, Kate. Interesting question. It's assumed that I haven't been green for a while. I actually became a green in 1992 when we first were able to run candidates in California, and I was maybe my early 20s. We had just come out of the 8 years of Reagan, 4 years of Papa Bush, and no one was going to do anything about it. And I was disgusted with the Democrats at that time. How could we go through 12 years of the nightmare of this country, really the evisceration of community, of workers' rights, of labor protection, of anything that was resembling any type of peaceful communities? How could we go through that and not address it? And so my grandfather, actually, he was a FDR Democrat. He turned me on to the Green Party. So I've been a Green ever since. So
I like the fact that you use that term, because my grandmother is 102 years old.
Wow.
And or wait, I think she's 101. She'll be 102 soon. But yeah. But anyway, she used to identify as an FDR Democrat. And I always like to tell people, I'm like, you know what that used to be called in her day? Democrat. That's what that used to be called. Used to just be called Democrat.
Yeah.
Used to, yeah. But
well, yeah. I don't want to open up a super can of worms with this, but this is fundamental to who I am and fundamental to the politics I think that must be discussed. And what I promise to do if I win in November is start going back to the past. And a lot of the reason that young people love Bernie Sanders was not just what he talked about what's going on now and promises of the future, but he taught them, and they responded. They listened. I'm a lifelong teacher, and I know what what young people look like when they're listening. But it was no accident that everything's kind of changed since FDR, since those times when they took that mic away from Wallace and didn't allow him to be the nominee and instead put in Truman. It was the beginning of the Cold War. And we've been really going downhill philosophically and politically in this country ever since then. As a matter of fact, and everything has been an attack on anything progressive. If you think about it, 60, 70 years, if you were promoting anything like we want today, universal health care or housing rights or international peace, what have we always been called? Communists. We've been labeled around the world. People have been killed and tortured and disappeared because of this. Just a sec.
Tell them I'm busy.
Yeah.
Tell them I can't come to the phone.
Taken off the hook. And so to address this, and being someone who's been involved in Latin America issues for 30 years in the Latin American Solidarity Movement ever since the late 80s, it's near and dear to my heart. And so we actually put on in December a day-long panel in Los Angeles, and we called it the Cold War Truth Commission. And I invite anyone who's listening right now or who will in the future. What we did was we tried to create a model of a series of panels talking about how we were made afraid in this country to be progressive, how since for the last 100 years, we've been attacking progressive policies under the names of anti-communism, and then what we did in the name of anti-communism around the world, and what it did to this country, to the people of this country. So we want people who understand this kind of big picture to take this model around the country. In just 1 second.
Landline problems.
Yep, there we go.
I haven't had one in a long time. So some people want to know, because they checked out your website and looked at your educational background. What are your thoughts on Reaganomics?
That we're still reeling from Reaganomics.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, and I will just defend my position on this, is that I think the difference between Obama and Trump is not as great as the difference between Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. That was such a huge sea change, and both economically, militaristically, culturally. My mom says, and I'll never forget, she says, She says, Ronald Reagan changed the country. He made it okay to be selfish. We went through the period, if you remember, and if you are too, if you're too young, you need to listen to those of us that remember, and we're going to talk about it.
I have been 27 since the year 1933.
Okay.
But, I mean, most people don't have my situation.
Yeah, we've been increasingly more consumerist, increasingly more elitist, increasingly more chasing that we had a show in the 1980s called The Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. I mean, if we didn't have Ronald Reagan, we would not have Donald Trump.
Have you ever seen The Power of Nightmares?
No.
You got to see that movie. I mean, that movie, it talks about how, like, it was basically the age of American narcissism, and it really goes into what you're talking about. And it goes back a little further than Reagan. It kind of starts around like the 50s or so. And it really traces all that. But yeah, I totally see what you're saying. Well, Barack Obama admitted himself, he called himself, he's like, I'm a moderate Republican. And that was like very much an unmasking moment. He was like, hey, surprise. He ran on a centrist platform to begin with. These people that thought Obama was going to be an FDR, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I supported Dennis Kucinich in the 08 primary. And then when Obama got it, I was like, well, he's the moderate we're going to get after Bush, and that's better than another Republican. And, I got behind him. But I was like, okay, this is the moderate we need. And even that was wrong. Even my low expectations, he didn't meet that bar. I mean, he ran on a moderately center-left platform, delivered a center-right one at best. I mean, one could argue it was a right-wing one. Yeah. And he admitted that himself.
Sure. I say I've been a green all these years. I've switched a couple of times.
When did you start your animal shelter?
Yeah, right. My chickens are outside too.
Really?
Yes, laying their eggs like they should. Protein.
You are so cool.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so I switched a couple times back to Democrat. One was, of course, to vote for Bernie. But I started Burners Against Militarism. If we want to get back to that another time. And I also switched to vote for Obama the first time. In the primary against Hillary Clinton, I think, right? Yeah, Hillary Clinton. Anyway, the reason I did that was only one thing. And sometimes I'm a one issue gal. He said that he would talk to Fidel Castro. And I had never heard anyone say that. And I thought, wow, that's good enough for my vote. And of course, he didn't. He did some amazing things. He had no idea how important they were in U.S.-Cuba relations. If he did, he might not have done them. But I'm glad he did, of course. But when he came in, I remember day one, day two, Nancy Pelosi saying there will be no accounting of the Donald Bush years, and Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, George Bush Jr., they all got off scot-free. And when I realized that they weren't going to go back, just like after the Reagan Bush years, we did not go back and and unravel that, as you say, nightmare. We weren't going to do it, and they were going to get off scot-free. And I knew right then, day two, that forget about it. So
and your district includes San Pedro, right?
San Pedro, please.
San Pedro, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
All right. No, it's one of my favorite parts of town. I really like San Pedro, even though I don't say it right. I've only been in the area for 2 years, so I'm still learning.
Ron, you're welcome here.
Yeah. But so Joe wants to know, what are the top 3 issues affecting your district? And if elected, what would you do about them?
Well, the first, I'd say housing. I'd say pollution. I'm writing these down. Remember them. I mean, to talk about them. Housing, pollution, and the disconnect between youth and elderly, and that's obviously kind of a big picture issue. But with housing, I would also put healthcare, but that's kind of a statewide, nationwide thing. Right now, and we on both sides of the bridges, on both sides of the ports, we have a lot of gentrification going on, ironically, right at the waterfront. And so here on San Pedro, we have the revitalization of the LA waterfront, and it's public land. And it's one of these now public-private partnerships where private people, private corporations are going to come in and make a mint off of the use of public land. And it's fine. A lot of us here, we understand that the old ports of call was run down, that the landlords hadn't been attending to it for decades. We get that. But there are businesses that are being threatened right now with closure. That one is the Ports of Call restaurant that employs 150 people and has been there for 30 or 40 years. And we don't want it gone. So the fact that they would raise that building, and it just tells us that it's not community based. There's a lot of land consolidation and ownership of land. So one of my primary platform pieces is land reform. And what I mean by that is the understanding that more and more land is being concentrated in fewer and fewer hands. And when you have that, you have a monopoly and prices are going to go up. A lot of people in downtown San Pedro, a lot of businesses are just empty. And people blame the business owners. Well, they're not working hard enough. They blame various things. And they never seem to go after the rents. It's like, well, you know, these rents have been going up and up on these businesses. So no wonder they're empty. Same thing is happening on the other side in Long Beach, the gentrification of downtown. How many, you know, tens of millions of dollars being spent to, you know, make the downtown area so ritzy and luxury development. The brand new city hall, a lot of people are like, other city hall was fine. And so it's that kind of luxury building, nonstop overdevelopment that is one of the primary.
Well, and then how do you stop that? I mean, do you stop that by rent controls? Do you stop that by community investment? I mean, how do you stop that?
Well, you stop that by, first of all, calling it what it is. And it is luxury development. And so you put a moratorium on luxury development. And one thing I want to bring in, and my second point is pollution, and this kind of goes to this, is that, you know, if I win in November and I'm talking from a microphone in at the Capitol building in Sacramento, I'm going to let people know that in Los Angeles and Long Beach, if you don't even think about it, but I'm an environmental engineer, so I go back to like the resource base of how we all are doing all these things in modern society, that a lot of the rock to make the cement to build these buildings comes from Canada, comes from Vancouver, Canada. What they're doing is they're taking giant mountainsides by oceans, near the ocean, and they're using them as quarries. So they're destroying the mountains there. They're using them as quarries. And then they have a mile-long conveyor belt that takes that rock and puts it on a ship, and those ships come all the way down to here, and then to use more fossil energy, fossil fuels, in order to take the moisture out of that rock, make it cement to build down here. When you start, if you don't even think, like, buildings don't grow on trees, where does all this come from? And you start to think, wow, we're building so much down here, we can't even support the resource base. We have to go all the way to the Canadian pristine mountains and ruin up there to bring it all the way down here. So if you look at it that way, maybe people might kind of question, you know, does this need to be so brand new right now? And things like that. So one of those is just having us pause and look at the natural resource base of it. Secondly is this is going to piss some people off, maybe, you know, who are in my camp, but the word control, I don't think is the best word to use. I would say rent equalization. Okay, let's start with that. Well, what does that mean? To me, that means that everyone should be equally concerned about having housing. And if you have some people who live daily afraid that they're going to be homeless, there's something wrong with that picture, especially when you have other people who own 2 and 3 and 4 homes and more apartment buildings, and they are the land, quote unquote, lords of our society. So I don't think some people and a growing underclass of people should be so housing insecure. So everyone needs to have secure housing. And one thing for that is public banking. Los Angeles is talking about public banking. Los Angeles City Council is talking about it. We have public banking now in California for the marijuana industry. So why not for the housing industry? Why can't we have a public bank where we don't have to worry about an interest rate on mortgages or funds to create low income housing? If we had public banking, we wouldn't be paying for-profit bank the interest rates in order to build housing. That's so much a reason that it's not affordable. And just one more last point on that is people don't often think it's not so much what I earn, it's what I owe. And half it used to be 25% of our salaries went to housing. And then when I was a kid, I remember, if it's 30% of your salary, then you're doing good. And it's not that anymore. We would love to have a third of our income go to housing. It's half at least, and so to 70% sometimes. And that's not just, necessarily some greedy landlord, because most people who are maybe landlords don't own that other building that they're renting out outright. And so they have to charge higher rents because the bank is their mortgage on that property is being funded, so much of it is going to interest towards banks. So I want us to work together and look up at the banks. We need to start really looking at those citadels of fortune.
No, that's a great point. And I'm totally with you that there should be, we're getting a little echo. I'm totally with you that there should be some kind of maybe better verbiage, because I think the general person, when they kind of get scared away from rent control, is they're under the misconception that the landlords are going to lose out. And that's not true. Rent control does not, the landlords, they still get to make a sustainable profit on their property. It just kind of looks out for the renters back too. I mean, I think, like rent equalization or rent security, that's kind of,
something rent fairness,
rent fairness, absolutely, because the truth is, and with rent control, as we refer to it now, like the landlords don't lose; it's more everybody wins, But so yeah, and public banking is definitely a good input there. We got a lot of questions. Let me keep moving forward here. What is something totally doable that you are looking forward to doing right when you take office?
Okay, and so that goes, because I only talked about the one of the three that the first question asked, but this will take me to the third one, and it's a kind of novel idea I had, and it actually came from a senior citizen. She's a friend of mine here in San Pedro, and she just said, "Please, I so support you," and I helped her put in a urban garden in her front yard a few years ago with some kids, and she says, "Please, you need to help the elderly." And so I thought, and I work with youth. And so one of the first things I would do is I would begin to give 10% of my salary to support programs that help bring youth and elderly together to solve their divergent problems, but with one solution. And tell me, San Pedro, tell me, Long Beach, if there's a program out there, I can start working with you, or if we're going to have to invent it on our own. But elderly have a problem with huge problem of loneliness and with lack of dignity, because they have lived their life. They have so much experience, so much to offer, and no one's asking them and no one's including them. And I think that's just evil. And the youth have so much need and so much love and need of guidance. And I really want to bring youth and elderly together. And I'm willing to pay 10% of my salary, if that's legal. I hope it is, for me to fund my own kind of cool things.
Well, how are you going to do that?
Hmm?
How are you going to do that specifically? Like a program, or? Yeah,
it would be, I don't know, it can't be it has to be controlled by we the people. But it maybe around, Jesus. And like I said, if there's a program like that exists, or a youth program that's hearing me right now and says, wow, I see how we can create, include elderly, or an elderly program. How can we include the youth? I know people in Long Beach in the Gray Panthers. I'll bet they have some great ideas. One thing could be around gardening. urban farming. I take my students out a lot, and we talk with seniors and about seniors who are from the World War II era, and they remember the Victory Gardens, and they have a lot of knowledge about when food was grown everywhere, that it wasn't some kind of novelty, that it was about survival and being there for your country. And so that's maybe a place I would start. Also, there's another cool model I've heard of is, of course, young people need housing. And there are models where young people have been housed in elderly homes. And what they do is they give 30 hours a week of service in that elder home, and they get housing. So
that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah. So everything like that. I'm an outside of the box kind of thinker, and I subscribe to Yes Magazine, just super ideas.
It's up in the Northwest, right?
I think so. Yeah. Mother Earth News. So that's kind of where I get, and this great blog that I hope your listeners could get onto. It's called Resilience, and it's resilience.org. And I come from like a peak oil perspective and a curtailment of energy use, and how are we really going to do this? So outside the box thinking.
So basically, to sort of give a Cliff Notes summary, you would want to kind of instill some programs that have economic and community benefits that would also, as a cyclical effect, kind of bridge together different generations and build a stronger community.
Yes, and I think that, and this is the way I think. It's just me, or maybe my engineering background, environmental engineering, that I'm a problem solver, but we don't have time, and it's kind of boring to solve one problem at a time. I think with a solution, you need to be solving 2 or 3 problems at the same time. So we would be bringing all that, addressing all of that. And I have a lot of time in Latin America, so maybe I've seen a lot of intergenerational work, and it's nothing new to me. It's a great way to go.
Well, no, and I think it's a really important thing, because we see so much of these, you see so many stigmas going on, especially towards the younger generation. And that's always been a thing, when the baby boomers were the younger generation, the generation before them did it to them. And then now the baby boomers are doing it to the millennials. And now everybody else is doing it to Gen Y, which I think is so ridiculous. I think that this next generation, I think they're going to take us back to outer space. I think the young people right now are incredibly mobilized. I think they're paying attention. I think they're going to be very much engaged. I think they already are, and they have to be. I think that when people kind of crap on this generations and Tide Pods and blah blah blah, I think that's just straight up propaganda. And this is coming from someone who toured colleges up until recently, pretty much full time. And I just think a lot of those stigmas are nonsense. The truth is, every generation has people that are really engaged and people that aren't, people that are lazy and people that aren't, people that are, you kind of get a little bit of everything, because that's how the world works. And yeah, inclusory things are only positive.
Well, yeah, just, there's so much to say on that. I think of Malcolm X saying, first you break a man's legs and then you call him a crippled. First you just totally disempower youth and disengage them and give them crappy schools and violence all around them, and then they check out, and then you blame them for checking out. It's ridiculous. And like I said, I've been a teacher all my life. I've been a high school teacher the last 12 years. And I tell my students all the time, I say, when I talk to you, we're talking about sustainability and a new way of looking things. And I say, I talk to all of you, and you all get it. I say, if I said the same thing in a room full of adults, half of them would be arguing with me. And so, of course, we're going to attack the youth, because they have huge hearts. I mean, I'm dealing with 16, 17-year-olds that when you show them a picture of like a little puppy in a, tied up in a backyard hungry, I mean, they're all practically in tears. Youth have big hearts. No wonder the kind of the capitalist, heartless media is gonna try and crush that, because they have different solutions. So very much. And I like how you mentioned, the generation, what, Y did you say? I'm from so-called Generation X. And what they said about us is they said basically we came after the, you know, the ones that cared, the anti-Vietnam, you know, era, and supposedly we didn't care. Well, we grew up under Ronald Reagan, and a lot of us cared a lot. And so I actually kind of wrote a song, and one of the lines was, you know, we're supposedly Generation X. Who said that anyway? Nobody's going to write my text. Like, you can't
What
tell
kind of
me.
music do you play?
Just hippie folk, you know, guitar. I haven't had a lot of time in the United States, but when I was in the Peace Corps for 3 years and back in Honduras, so country beleaguered by U.S. foreign policy, and I played a lot of guitar back then. So guitar.
Well, no, I mean, what attracted me to San Pedro initially when I got to town is like I'm a big punk rocker, so Mike Watt was why I wanted to check out Pedro initially, and you know, I think it's an excellent location for all the stuff you're talking about. I can totally understand why you connect with that place. When I first got there, I wasn't sure what to think. And then eventually I was just like, this is, and coming from me, this is a good thing. Other people might say the same thing and mean it in a bad way, but I mean it in a really good way. Pedro is like Detroit with a coastline. And this is coming from someone who Detroit is one of my favorite cities, where it's very communal. It's very much like it has a certain grit authenticity to it. And I really, really love that. I mean, me and my girlfriend, we live in Pasadena. We love it here. I love Pasadena. But one thing we mutually agree on is eventually we want to live closer to the water, you know, at some point when you know, life is at a point where it makes sense. And Pedro's on our short list because, yeah, I really do love that community a lot. So so we only got a few more minutes here. I'm going to give you a couple quick rapid fire questions. Okay. How do you feel about Jerry Brown's water project restructuring the Delta to bring water down to Southern California?
Yeah, well, I was just working with a local campaign in LA. It's called Our Water Campaign, and everyone should check it out. What we're doing, and I got my students involved also, is we're trying to pressure the Board of Supervisors in the County of Los Angeles to look more into water reclamation projects that also restore nature around the cities. And that's a huge part of my platform is the restoration of nature in our cities. We can do a lot of things with bioswales to capture the water we have now. Instead of cementing over all our properties, we need to be de-cementing, as a matter of fact. We need to be making bioswales, catching with water with rainwater, and doing everything we can to sink and fill our aquifers and reuse our water here. So that's the kind of local issue. I am not for the tunnels in any way, and so I think that that is a big boondoggle, and I'm not for the bullet train either. I don't think that we should be spending our money on either one of those huge infrastructure projects.
So last question here. And by the way, Pat, thank you for your super chat contribution. A couple people were saying that they'd like to see a political debate between your dogs and my cat, Lucy. She's kind of a character on the show. My cat.
Well,
Lucy
my dogs love cats, so.
All right. I mean, they might. I mean, I don't know where their leanings are, but Lucy is, you know, she is a socialist feminist poet. So I don't know. I don't know if they'd agree on a lot. Or she's a bit of a character, and she voted for Jill Stein in 2016. My cat Lucy did. So so they might have a lot of agreement depending on where your dogs lean. But last question: do you support or oppose Elon Musk's Pravada idea where we can rate the credibility of journalists? That's the kind of specific thing going on in the news.
Rate the credibility of journalists.
Yeah, if you're not familiar, Elon Musk, and I think they already abandoned this idea, by the way, but Elon Musk proposed this website they were going to have where they were going to allow people to rate the credibility of journalists and of news sites. And I personally was not for it. While I understand fake news and propaganda and all that, I don't know why some corporate CEO needs to be the enforcer. I kind of thought that Elon Musk, and you know, maybe their intentions are in the right place, but I don't really feel like it's the corporatocracy's place to do that. I don't feel like it's Mark Zuckerberg's place either. especially not him. But that was my take on it.
Okay, so the kind of roundabout answer, I don't know about that actual issue, but we're not super Elon Musk fans in my family or in this household because he's an elitist. We need, I'm all for the space program, always have been. My dad taught me to love astronomy and be for the space program, but you don't send a big, your roadster up on a rocket and try and wow everyone when we have so much suffering here on Earth. One time when we were talking about exploring Mars, my daughter was very small, and she said, why? I said, well, people think we might live there someday. And she said, but Earth is perfect. And I thought, wow, out of the mouths of babes, we need to be doing a lot. His whole tunnel idea, I think, is crazy and elitist. And I would like to know the climate impact. So everything that's going on in terms of his big projects, I want to ask him, what are the climate impacts of all of that? So,
sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I
have an electric vehicle myself. So I'm all for EVs, but the best thing we can do for transportation to help pollution is not electric and all the best thing we can do is localize our economies so that people are traveling less to their work. That's the best thing we can do for pollution and for traffic and everything like that.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this on another show that I help out with called Aggressive Progressives, and my basic thesis was, look, when it comes to this issue, we don't need some big corporate elitists, as you put, kind of telling us what we should and shouldn't read. What we need are really strong media watchdogs that are really doing the work, more fairs and stuff like that. We are out of time, so please use our remaining few minutes to tell people where they can learn more about you, go ahead, plug yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. That went quick. So yeah, you can look for me at Rachel, RACHEL, Rachel for Assembly, the number 4.org. I also have a Facebook page. If I forget exactly the name, but it's Rachel Brunke for California Assembly District 70, something like that. We have a lot of things. Bueno, muy rápido en español. Mañana, el sábado, vamos a estar en la comunidad de Rancho San Pedro, which is a housing project. Y yo tengo mi literatura todo en español y vamos a estar hablando con la gente ahí. Entonces, si me deja un mensaje, if you leave me a message, if you speak Spanish maybe, y quiere ayudarme, you want to help out, vamos a ir ahí mañana. Yeah, and then we're just getting the vote out and waiting for Tuesday.
Real quick here, because we just had one last super chat come in. Do you support publicly financed elections?
Absolutely. Yeah. And no corporate money and publicly financed. Yeah. And just low key, the airwaves literally above in our air in America are free. They're the public's, and they've been so privatized and so corporatized. We need to be seen instead of nonsense television and nonsense media. We need to be seeing real issues discussed for free on the airwaves.
Amen. Rachel, thank you so much for doing this. I know it's a different type of show to do. It's a lot of rapid fire, but you did absolutely great, guys. Thank you for so many excellent questions once again. RachelForAssembly.org. That's Rachel, the number 4, Assembly.org. She's running for Assembly District 70 here in California. That's your district. You know what to do on June 5th. This has been Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. We will be back Tuesday at 10 a.m. We do this every Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, unless otherwise noted. I know sometimes my tour schedule mixes that up a bit, but we'll totally be back on Tuesday. Until then, you guys have a great weekend. The Progressive Comedy Tour, Graham Elwood and I are coming to the Southeast June 20th through 24th. We're going to be in Nashville, Huntsville, Louisville, Asheville, Atlanta. Get your tickets at ronplacone.com. And you guys know the drill, patreon.com/ronplacone if you are so able. For a pay-what-you-can level, you get all kinds of exclusive perks, you get all kinds of exclusive content, and you help me build this show and expand. You guys are amazing. Rachel, thank you once again. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Onward to November. Thank you.